We're looking at the V&A, the Victoria and Albert Museum here. And this was designed by Japanese architect Kenzo Kuma. It is described by the architect as being like a living room on the city, a living room of the city. Designed intended to be quite a personal, not an overbearing structure. And I think some of these exterior views are just fantastic inside. It is the only purpose-built design museum outside London. And of course you may be familiar with the Victoria and Apply Museum there in London. So really
it was a stiff competition. Other cities did apply. And Dundee put forward the best case and the best location, and Dundee was awarded the contract for the new V&A. And this development is continuing because Dundee has just won the contract for the Eden project, and this was only done about a month ago. They've signed the articles of memorandum. So this whole waterfront of the city is changing. If you don't know the Eden project, it's in Cornwall. It's like a big biosphere. And I would suggest just Google it, the Eden project. I think the G7 leaders actually went there last week.
Oh, right.
I think the G7 leaders were in Cornwall, and I think there's some photo ops in the Eden project. But this is definitely going to transform the whole city. A permanent exhibition of Scottish design, so it attracts a lot of technology people, a lot of technology students want to come here. And of course then you've got Dundee University, which is bigger. It's about 14,000 students in it, and that covers everything from medicine through the arts, through everything. And Mike studied art here.
Sorry, I just want to show you this as well. This is quite a nice angle on it. It's quite impressive with the sea. A nice contrast there as well. Well, Dundee, it was a hugely important place, going back to the 12th century. And David I gave it a royal charter. In the 1190s it had a royal charter. You may wonder what that is and all this stuff about boroughs. Well, a royal charter was to have less tolls for merchants who were transporting goods out of the country. And it was also a civilising arrangement to civilise Scotland, this idea of royal charters. Scotland was more important than Edinburgh because to cross over to the Baltic, which was some of the main trading destinations of Scotland, it was 2 hours nearer. It was 2 hours less sailing time to come here from Dundee. Now, Dundee had various industries. It declined a little bit as a mercantile centre, with an emphasis going on to Edinburgh and then eventually Glasgow. So I had to seek out new industries, and one of these industries was jute, J-U-T-E. And jute was a natural fibre which was imported from what was called Bengal back then, but today it's called Bangladesh. And the harbour here at Dundee was absolutely tailor-made for transporting jute, but previous to that it had a linen industry as well, and they were importing flax from Riga in Latvia. So it was always quite a tradition of textile manufacture, and of course it was called She Town, S-H-E, because women were the breadwinners. In fact, women outnumbered men 3 to 1 in terms of workers in this city. It was very different. The men were called kettle boilers, and kettle boilers were sitting at home looking after the kids and boiling the kettle. And so only in Dundee you get that description. Now, it was a hard life. Now, we're in this open space here, and I'd like to talk about one of the women in particular, called Mary Slessor. Small children actually born in the 1840s, and it was very hard. She was a child labourer in the mills, and a lot of the small children actually had to go underneath the machines to get rid of the dust and keep them clean. And extremely hard life, and the children had to do that as well because they were able to climb underneath the machines too. And it had many mills here producing jute. Alright, but Mary Slessor, she was a very caring person. She'd been brought up to be quite religious. She attended church, and she was very fired up by David Livingstone and his excursions to Africa, and she decided that she wanted to carry the Christian message to Nigeria, and she ended up in Calabar as quite a young woman, and she was challenging the really grotesque traditions out there. In fact, one of them was the tribal beliefs that if you had twins, then the twins had to die because one of these twins was the child of the devil. And that was one of the beliefs, that she was able to save a lot of the children. She adopted twins, and she overcame a lot of the ancient traditions there. And she was a great hero. She helped. She challenged the aggression of the tribal leaders and brought the Christian message. And there are many statues to Mary Slessor. She caught malaria. She returned to Scotland and then went back to Nigeria and eventually died in, I think it was about 1914 or so. And there's a great legacy of statues and street names. In fact, even like here in Dundee, this open space is named after her, Mary Slessor, and you can see there's quite a lot of regeneration going on here with the open spaces and so on. Cloth for sailing ships, and but what did it make? Well, jute was a very important fabric because for sailcloth, for sailing ships in particular, for sacks, for ropes as well, for the reverse of linoleum, floor covering, it was very important too. Very wanting to pass. This was the centre of the jute industry, but being very wanting to pass their skills on, they educated the Indians into how to process jute, and the whole industry just collapsed here and moved to Calcutta. And polypropylene began to take the place of jute and natural fibres, so that was the end of that. But today Dundee is known for its jam, jute, journalism, and Joe's going to tell you a bit more about some of that. So there we go. Okay.
And it's interesting you were talking about, Mike, because of the industries and because of the involvement of the women in the industry, this is a very militant town as well. So the women were very militant, and there's a big irony here because Winston Churchill was the MP here, and he was completely against female suffrage. So when the women first got the vote, guess what they did? They voted Winston Churchill out. He was the first victim of the suffragette city, as it was called as well. So this is the original suffragette city. Now I want to talk a wee bit about the other J's. So it is famous for its jam. Just all around the city is I would say it's a fruit basket of Scotland. Strawberry fields are everywhere, raspberry fields, all the canes. Lad, when she was ill, they were here, so marmalade was supposed to be actually invented here in Dundee, and it was said that it was made for Mary Queen of Scots, because marmalade repeatedly comes from Marie est malade. When she was ill, they would boil lots of oranges with lots of sugar, and that would help settle her stomach. Now on the journalism side, and there's not one British person here, I would say, that does not know the comics of D.C. Thomson. And I am going to give Mike one of my little props here. Now this might actually burst a little bubble for some of our American viewers, because I know Americans always think that Dennis the Menace is the all-American kid. Sorry, Dennis the Menace created here and syndicated around the world. And here's Dennis in front of the Beano. There's the company is called D.C. Thomson, and it still operates today, and it still publishes all the famous little comics that we all grew up with as kids. So we had the Beano, we had the Dandy, we had the Topper, we had the Beezer. The girls had the Bunty and the Judy, and every Tuesday and Thursday the magazines would get put through, and there was so many of these little cartoon characters that we all remember. It's all like, there was Biffo the Bear, Corky the Cat, Dennis the Menace, and probably the most famous family in Scotland, Dundee, called the Sunday Post. And the Sunday Post has two specific characters, well, one character in particular and one famous family, probably the most famous family in Scotland, and they're called the Browns. Now the Browns, if you were being English, you'd call them the Browns. And Ur Wully, it's not Ur Willie, it's Ur Wully. And the thing about it was, when we were kids, this is the first time that I actually had ever seen our dialect written down. Because we didn't see it. You went, it was almost like a censorship to, in a sense. You never saw our dialect written down, but you would see it every Sunday. And if you want to open up that magazine, that little book there, Mike, they live in this fictitious town called, probably the most famous family in Scotland. They live in this fictitious town called Auchenshoogle. Can you name all the characters, Mike?
Yeah, there's Ma Brown, there's Pa Brown.
Ma and Pa, Grandpa.
And there's
Hen
and
Joe.
And
Maggie and Daphne.
And the Bear.
And Horace.
And the twins.
The twins and the Bear. Yeah. Bob. I don't think they call him Fat Bob anymore. Into trouble with PC Murdoch. And they've changed the name a bit. They've made it a little bit more politically correct, because they used to be Fat Bob. I don't think they call him Fat Bob anymore. I think they just call him, I don't know what they call him, just Bob. They take it away, this adjective.
Oh, have to be PC.
Yeah. So we're going to take you up into the city centre itself to show a wee bit. It's got a lovely civic square we're going to show you. But Mike, I want to pick up a bit on the sailcloths that were made here as well. Because the sailcloths that were made here were sold to the United States for the wagons that went across the US.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of connection here with the, of the wagon trains that went across the whole of North America.
Yeah, I don't know if you can pick me up, I hope you can, but the old mills now have been transformed into warehouses, housing, and even nightclubs. I think it's a good way forward, yeah. About Dundee is that they've been able to repurpose these buildings rather than demolish them all, which I think is a good way forward, yeah.
And I was picking up on the dynamism. The average age used to be in the 60s, but the average age has come down quite a lot, because a lot of the people who are actually studying here at the university stay here. Because employment has changed dramatically as well, so there's new opportunities, new creative industries starting up all the time. So lots of little startups, very entrepreneurial. But you see that quite a lot in a lot of the Scottish cities. It's the same with Glasgow. There's a new dynamism in Glasgow.
Yes.
And you just feel that there's a positivity, growth. And there's not many cities in the UK you can say that about, but certainly here in Dundee and in Glasgow.
Yeah, it's a bit of a land of cakes, as well, because we had this famous company called Wallace's, and Wallace's pie shops that are all over Dundee, and I think Joe's got a bit of the lingo, which is good.
No, I got told off, my accent's not that good. I made a mistake last time and I said well, they have this thing called a pie, which is, in English, is a pie.
That's it.
But they go pay. And then they have this, we talked before about they have this thing called the bridie. And you have bridies with or without onions. And they can distinguish which one's got the onion by the number of holes. I think if it's got one hole, it's got no onions. If it's got two holes, it's got onions. And they have the expression, so forgive my Dundonian accent, I'm not from Dundee. But I'll try it again. I got told off last week. I'll hae a bridie and an ingen and an ah, which means I'll have a bridie and an onion one too. An ingen and an ah. So here we're in the major square here. So this is a beautiful cared hall, concert hall, graduation hall as well. A pay, that's a pay, P-A-E-H. You got it, Marjorie. Pay. So there's graduation going on today as well, so you might see some of the kids in their gowns.
We should mention the fact it's quieter than it normally be because Scotland is playing the Czech Republic.
That's right.
In a soccer
Yeah, so the European Championships are on and Scotland's qualified. I think the last time I heard it was 1-0 for Czech Republic. I don't know what it is now. But we're going to finish off quite soon, but just to give you some views around here. At the end of the street is the Dundee High School, which is the only fee-paying school in the city. And it is fairly quiet in the city centre, but we're going to finish you off with some of our characters from the Beano.
I just want to speak about that. Yeah. That clock used to be Samuel's clock, and it was the point where you would meet your girlfriend or your boyfriend. It was the standard meeting place, and I believe many cities will have that. It's like if you're going to date somebody, I'll meet you under the Samuel's clock. It's not Samuel's today, but it's in the same location here in the centre.
And some other little things about Dundee. It's called the City of Many Discoveries. Aspirin was discovered here. And also the adhesive postage stamp was discovered here in Dundee as well, or created here, or invented. Now we're going to finish off with some of the characters. This is where to fire a slingshot at Desperate Cone on his head. Desperate Dam's always famous for eating his cow pies. Yeah. And here's little Minnie the Minx with her slingshot, ready to fire a slingshot at Desperate Dan's backside. Jam in journalism. 2 universities, Dundee University and the University of Aberdeen, and a huge big teaching hospital, Nine Wells Hospital, which is involved with the universities in terms of the research. People from Dundee are known as Dundonians.
And an art college. I must mention that.
And the art college. Mike went to the art college. Mike studied art here. And if you want to go and see Mike's art, go onto his website. He's got some beautiful stuff as well. So I hope you enjoyed your little sojourn into Dundee, our 4th largest city in Scotland. It's been a bit windy, and somebody said it's windy all over Scotland today. But certainly if you're on a tour, I would certainly put Dundee on the map now, because it is really worth coming to it. With the V&A, it's a great exhibition space, and you get great music in the Caird Hall as well. And with the Eden project coming, this city is really going places. It really is. So bye-bye from Joe. You said, okay.
And here's Joe to say bye-bye. Bye. And I'll just say bye-bye and wave goodbye once again.